Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to a new episode of Lather Talk. My guest for today is Heather Melton of Zingari Man, and we just had a great chat talking about how the business has grown over this past year, especially in light of the COVID pandemic. We talk a bit about her new expanded workspace. It really is a great peek behind the curtain of the everyday operations of Zingari Man, but what I found really interesting was the insight and the ups and downs of moving from part-time to full-time. I think this is a great conversation to listen in on if you're a burgeoning artisan or small business owner. It really was a fun chat, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Now, on to the episode. Hey everyone, welcome to the Lather Talk podcast. I'm your host, John, aka Lather Hog. Unfortunately, my co-host, Gerard, cannot be here today due to some scheduling conflicts. However, I have a very wonderful and special guest with us today for the episode. It is none other than Heather, artisan behind Zingari Man. Heather, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, John. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So good to have you on. So, for those who might not be familiar with Zingari Man, maybe they're new to wet shaving, just finding out what this shaving stuff is all about. Could you give us a little bit on how Zingari Man started, what year it started and how you got into it?
So I started my first business in 2014, just doing women's skincare, basic soaps and stuff, and started kind of playing around with men's. And the men's products just pretty much took over on my sales. So in 2018, I rebranded, launched in the fall under Zingari Man. And one of my big things, really my focus was to make a men's line that had more of a focus on skincare. So, I mean, most people I think by now associate me a little bit more with the skincare side of shaving and stuff. So that was really what I set out to do. Because I myself have a lot of skin issues. I have super sensitive skin, and I was having a lot of reactions and just super hyper reactive skin. I couldn't wear makeup. I was having issues with face washes. And so, just doing research, I started making soap, and it kind of just became a quick obsession. At one point we had 300 bars of soap in the house, and I went to make another batch of soap, and my husband's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I'm making soap." And he goes, "The hell you are. What are you doing? What are we going to do with all this?" Hey, start a business, they said. So that's how it started. And my background is actually in laboratory science. And so, and I love to cook. And so this is literally the perfect middle ground between two of my obsessions. So,
oh yeah, definitely.
It's just such a great combo for me with my background and then my passion for cooking and just exploring the ingredients. It's all fell over into what I do now. So that's kind of how I started. And my first company was Smitten Soapery, and that's not necessarily a very inviting name for men. So I tried to find something a little bit more masculine, and I kind of went from there, and that's kind of how I got here, I guess.
Well, I did ask you for, I guess, a summary, and I know that's a lot to summarize, especially with a rebrand and whatnot. But so first off, thank you for kind of just giving that little introduction. It's always interesting to hear from our guests, kind of for them to encapsulate their, what their history is of their brand, of their business. Because I can read the about page for as as long as I want, but exactly. I'm not going to get that personal touch. So. So thanks for entertaining that question for me.
Pages, this is the thing with especially in the write-ups that I have, people just don't read much, or they start to read, and they don't really hear. So the same with talking with someone, there's always so much more detail because you kind of got to make those things quick and brief, right?
That's true. It's true. And of course, like the opposite method would be like, what's the elevator pitch, right? You got 30 seconds to like,
Oh
but
yeah, I don't
that's
even.
more like selling though, as opposed to like, oh, I actually want to hear more about you.
Yeah, that seems like the ultimate stress like
Oh,
situation for
maybe I
me.
should have asked that.
Yeah, that would
No,
be
no.
like. So yesterday I did this presentation to a retailer, and I had 5 minutes. And
Oh,
I was like basically told like you need to hit these points about your brand, like what it is about your brand that does this and this and this. It was so terrible. I had 24 hours to prepare, and I was so freaking stressed, and
oh
like
wow.
it was awful. Like I was recording myself on my phone, and I didn't even listen back to it just to hit the time, just 5 minutes. It doesn't,
Yeah.
it seems like 5 minutes is a long time, but then I think, and it wasn't, but 30 seconds, oh my God. It's like, hey, I make shapes now, bye.
See ya. Like, what is wet shaving? Like, oh no,
Yeah,
there goes my 29 seconds.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, let's fast forward then a little bit because uh, I am a fan of your products and very happy to use them. And obviously, tracking kind of the growth of Zingari Man and what you've been up to. And one thing that happened, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's been a couple of months. It seems still fresh in my mind where you moved into a new workspace and basically an expansion. Could you talk to us a little bit about how the move went and kind of where that is right now?
So, people would ask me, are you making soap in your basement or your kitchen?
Mm,
No, I wasn't. I did. That's how I started. Like, there's definitely nothing wrong with that. That is where I started. But I once spilt a 5-gallon bucket of raw soap all over my kitchen, like island, the counter, and it
ooh,
like went all down my kitchen cabinets. My husband looked at me and he goes, "You're getting a workshop." Like that was the end of the story. So we built a detached garage, and so I had a small, basically it was like a 3-car garage, and I
mm,
had like one car bay that was like finished out and like air conditioned and stuff like that, like temperature controlled. And so that was my workshop for 5 years, which was awesome. And at first I was like, oh my God, all this space. It was like 14 by 18. I don't know, it wasn't that big, but like I had dedicated space and that's all I cared about.
yeah,
Um, but last year I got to the point to where I couldn't grow anymore if I literally didn't grow. I was like, I can't take on any more retailers. I just like every time I had a release, I was like making the products ahead and I was sitting them like outside of the shop, like in my garage, basically. Um, until I had room to put them because I just like I just didn't have room to put them on the shelves. So when I first launched, and some people don't know this, like I actually carried women's products very short term, and
mm,
then about less than a year into it, I was like, yeah, these got to go. Like I don't have time. Like they're not like they're. I just it was kind of like I didn't want to let it go because it was like my
sure,
baby, like when I started,
yeah,
and so I finally like just I let go of the rope and I let it go and I was just like it's fine. But so I did get a little bit more room in the shop then, but I just with the retailers I was taking on, like every retailer I got, like every new release became more stressful because I was like, oh my God, I got to make more and I don't have room. And so in the fall we started looking and I found the shop I'm in now, which is about 4,000 square feet, which is like I don't even know what I have before. Probably like 400 square feet, maybe if
wow,
that.
that's quite improve increase.
Yeah. Oh,
Oh
yeah.
man,
It's like the improvement. I was like, I don't need this. I don't need this much room. I don't need this much room. My husband's like, we're buying. You're like, you're gonna have. And that was the thing. Like, he's a realtor, so he's like, you're not renting. You're gonna have to buy something. So
gotcha.
I didn't want to buy something that like just worked for now. I wanted something I could grow
Hmm.
into. So
Totally,
that's yeah, that's the whole point behind getting like 4,000 square foot. It's not like I need that right now, but
right.
yeah. So
Wow,
we bought
400 to
that.
4,000. Yeah, that's
Yeah, it's crazy. Like I literally have an entire building for just storage, and it's like, what? I had like a shelf, like a wall before for
right,
storage.
right.
So
Oh man,
yeah, it's pretty nice to actually have room to move and like it's just it's crazy. Like the amount of space that I have is amazing right now. It's so nice.
awesome.
Um, but so yeah, we moved it. We bought that in the fall, and then it was basically a pole barn. Basically, it was basically a pole barn with like this little office break room area, bathroom like built into it. And so we finished it out, and we, you know, put in ceiling, wall, we covered the floor and all that good stuff. And then we moved in the end of January, February, early February, something, I think. And it's awesome. It took us a while to get situated and to like, you know, where everything was. That was a whole, like, we had like, you know, when you get your routine of like you're in your kitchen cooking, you can turn around and like grab something out of the drawer. Like, you know where to go. Like, it's just automatic, right? Like,
Yeah.
The workshop was like that.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's kind of like when you move into a new house,
Yeah.
and then you're like trying to cook, and all of a sudden you're like, where the hell is, like, I did that for like 2 months.
So with this really investing in yourself, investing in this business, have your hours shifted? Because, you know, you mentioned, you know, the day job is as in the lab. Has that shifted then, I guess, as Zingari Man, I would imagine, is taking up more of your time?
Yes. So when I moved into the building, I had a plan that I was going to be a full-time artisan by the end of the year. I was going to give myself to the end of the year and let things get situated with like all the new like expenses and just, you know, the growth and stuff like that, and kind of settle into it a little bit. And I just decided and quickly realized that it was really becoming more of an interference than I realized, I think, like I wasn't going to be able to get time off. There was a trade show I wanted to do, and it's not like a hobby trade show. It's like a full blown, like regular trade show. And I wanted to do that, and it's in Vegas in the fall, and I wasn't going to be able to get off. And you know, I kept thinking about it, and I was like, you know, like this is really like, it's starting to interfere, like not just be a distraction or anything like that. Like it's literally interfering with business. And so it was a terrifying thought, as I'm sure anybody who's like ever went to be self-employed before will tell you. It was a terrifying thought that just one day I was just like, I'm gonna have to quit. Like I'm just going to have to, like, and I've been in the hospital lab. I mean, that's what I've done for almost 20 years, like 18, 19 years. Yeah. And so I love my job, and that made it even harder. Sure. I think like if I didn't like my job and I hated where I worked or my coworkers, like I think that would make it a whole lot easier to be like, peace out, bitches. Like, I'm done. Yeah. But I like what I do, you know? Yeah. And, you know, I felt like, you know, especially like in the fall and in the summer, like when our COVID numbers were high, like, you know, when you work in healthcare, like it's always nice to know that like what you're doing really is making a difference, especially if you're not necessarily front lines, even though you're like very necessary. Like the laboratory is definitely a necessary part of healthcare. For sure. But, you know, I don't want to say proud, but it gives you a little bit like pride knowing like you were a part of something like important, so to speak, whenever like your community needs it, you know, things like that. So I did love what I did, and actually I left and I put my notice in, and it took me a while, and it was one of those things that once I decided, and I was like, okay, I'm doing it, it'll be fine, I'll make it work, you know. And then like quickly I was like, I don't like this job anymore, like I'm ready to go. And that wasn't true at all. It was just kind of like I knew, like once I made my mind up and then made that decision, like I was ready to move on. Like, you know, that was fine. So I actually offered to stay on, like if they needed a little bit of extra help. Yeah. But I haven't worked since like May 1st, and I work like next weekend. And I actually just emailed my boss at the beginning of the week, and I was like, sorry, I think that's going to be my last weekend. I don't think I can do this. Like. So, but you know, it really is like, I was working like 70-hour weeks, and it's exhausting. And, I've been doing that for a long time. And even before Zingari like really took off, whenever, I was a lot smaller, and with Smitten, like I was doing craft shows and like I was traveling to do shows, and I was still putting in so much hours. And eventually it's just like you kind of gotta, like, as my mom used to say, you gotta like shit or get off the pot. Like you gotta do one or the other.
Yep.
Like
Right. Right.
so that's why I was just like, well, the hospital's not going anywhere. I'm leaving on good terms. I'm leaving on my terms. I put in like a 6-week notice, and so I can always go back if I need to. I mean, they're always going to be hiring to some degree, so
Right. Right.
that's how I'm looking at it.
But still, though, I mean, you with the building, and then obviously this, the shift or the leaving of your job, you're betting on you, and I mean, you hear, and they're always really inspiring stories, right? Entrepreneurs and whatever, they're betting on themselves, but it's not obviously with any quite the opposite, right? There's tons of risk, but
Yes, it's
but
very nerve-wracking.
could you say that again?
It's very nerve-wracking.
Yes.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's just, yes, you're right. And I think part of that is why I offered to stay on if they needed extra help at the hospital, because I think it was like a little bit of like that safety chain, like, well, if I'm not doing well, I can always try to work at the hospital, like to bring in some extra money maybe, or something like that, or I can still keep my foot in the door, and then I can always go back like and just pick up a shift or pick up more shifts or whatever. I think it was a crutch. And so I really think it was like it's a security. It's very hard. And my husband's also self-employed. He's a real estate agent, so he's
Right.
literally commission only. And
Right.
so yeah. So now we're both self-employed. It's great.
I'm sure that's at least a source, right, of like, I don't know, the lifestyle change slash like the day to day. I'm sure you're like, I'm gonna make my own schedule, but then it's on you, right? When it's like the order is not, you have a retail order to fill and it's not fulfilled. Like who in the end, who is it affecting? It's like it's yourself. So
Yeah.
you have that extra drive to.
Yes, you do. Yeah, you do. And my husband is very supportive because of what he's been a real estate agent for so long. What he realizes, and like, unfortunately, like a lot of spouses that are married to artisans, like, and this is things I've heard over and over, is like, it is a big leap, and I don't want to say it's a leap of faith. And like you said, it is betting on yourself, and sometimes that's really, really hard to do,
Sure,
right?
Yeah.
Especially whenever it comes to like your finances and like your living and stuff. I mean, it's a huge leap of faith.
Yep.
But he's always been one to say, like, well, you got to invest money, like you got to spend money to make money. And so like if I had a big purchase and I was like really nervous about it, he's like, you know what, like it's what you got to do, like, it's just how it is. And so I've never gotten a lot of slack from him. I've always gotten a lot of support. And so like whenever I wanted to buy the building, like I mean, I think at my position, I think there are spouses and significant others who would definitely be like, yeah, no, that's not happening. And instead he was like, well, you're not renting, you're buying. That's my one requirement. So he's been very supportive, thankfully, and pretty awesome. So I really can't complain. And yeah, as far as making my schedule, it is nice to have a little bit more flexibility and not be like dedicated to those, like, even though like I may not go to work until 9 or 10, but I may work till 7 or 8 or whatever at night, instead of like I have to be there from 2 to 10:30.
Right.
But there is one thing: I will not be working any more damn holidays, because I worked holidays for 18 years in the hospital, and so I will not be working on Christmas Day ever again.
That's good.
Sorry, y'all, but you're not getting soap on Christmas.
Right. You can say the shop is closing on whatever day, 22nd, 23rd, whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, that's great. And like you mentioned, like a significant other, spousal support is huge. I mean, whether it's anyone who wants to be self-employed, they get the idea, and how much hard is it to convince yourself, yes, I'm going to put all my eggs in this basket. And then if you have resistance or doubt from a loved one. Like that's not,
Yeah.
like that's not. I don't know. It's just making a challenging thing even harder. So,
Correct.
superb to hear
Yeah.
that your husband is. I mean, seems like very very active role as far as yeah, like pushing it. Like yeah, like you don't have to rent, buy, get the bigger space. Don't like 1,000 square feet. Like that would have been
Right.
reasonable, or like 1,200. Like let's triple the size. But then no, like it's
Yeah.
looking
Yeah.
long term because like hey, we're gonna make it that far. We're gonna need that space some point in the future.
Right.
Some point in the future. Not saying like next year, but like
Yeah. No, he's funny because like I'll have like a release or something because he's not in the hobby. So
that's
like
still
he
very unfortunate.
shaves, like,
You've told me this before.
Yeah, he's not really in the hobby. Like I could literally like he will not change it. He's the soap killer, I call him. Like he will not change his jar of soap out until it's gone, and then he'll be like, should I just grab one out of the drawer, or do you got a specific one? So like if he tries to grab one of mine that like I don't know, like I'm kind of cherishing, like I got a jar of Fenchurch. I'm like, don't touch that.
It'll be wasted on you.
Like, there's somewhere it's always like you're not gonna appreciate it. And so we're like, I'll let him use it for like a week, and then I put it back in the drawer so he doesn't like use it all up. So yeah, he's funny. So, yeah, he's funny. But so like I'll have a big release or something. He'll be like, don't you need to get to the shop and work? Like, what are you doing? Like, I heard your phone go off. I know you got orders to go pack. Like, so
yeah.
He's also like the whip cracker.
Okay, that's good. That's yeah. Support / taskmaster. I mean, it's we need that. We need we need that. Sometimes. So that's I don't know. That's just very special and very good to hear.
Yeah, he keeps me in check.
Let's shift gears a little bit, and there's some observations I made just as far as also I don't know if they came with the expansion or kind of like this up in investment of Zingari Man. So first, I want to mention the labels. And I'm a big fan of these illustrated labels that have been popping up in your last few releases. I know our mutual friend Raza from he has a YouTube channel, Shaving with Raza. Plug for you, Raza.
Awesome.
He's doing fantastic work. So I do want to mention it's had a very intentional thing because you had your like a very solid template before, right? Where you could just tweak the color a little bit, the font, right, of the name of the soap, like the Wanderer, the Explorer has little tweaks, but now like with this,
that's it. That's it. Just different colors.
it's still something. It keeps things simple but elegant. However, like going with the illustration and each tub looks so different. Like, what were some of the factors, I guess, going in that direction for you?
You guys are just demanding. How's that? No.
Excellent.
So when I did the Watchmen, as soon as I smelled the scent, I literally just had this picture that I wanted to go with it. And at first it was about the write-up. And a lot of people, that was the first time people noticed that I did these like big write-ups. And I'm like, the write-ups have always been there, but like nobody's ever paid attention to them before, right?
Until now.
And they're great. Like I have a writer. I don't write them, by the way. Like I cannot take credit for that. Jackson, if you're listening, thank you because you're also awesome. He is. He's fantastic.
Yeah.
He's a fantastic writer. So I had this vision instantly, and I was like, this is what I'm wanting. This is why, like, and then he did the write-up, and I was like, it's perfect. Like, it's exactly what I wanted. This, like, everything with that project just fell in place for me 100%. Everything was right on point on my expectations. And I was like, I have to have a label for this. Like, I have this like whole concept. I have this whole vision. Like, this is the one time I need a label for it. And honestly, I thought it was such a unique scent. I really wasn't sure how I was going to go over, but I loved it. And I was like, I don't care if anybody else does. I love it. And I came in contact with Lauren, who did the designer who did that. And actually,
by the way, that is a great label as well.
She nailed it.
So
and it's the first time she's ever done like an actual label. And she, I mean, obviously she don't know anything about shaving. She's like a graphic designer, but Yeah, she just totally killed it. And it was also her first metallic label, which is also
Oh, no
like
way.
twice as hard.
Really?
Yeah. It's a whole different concept to do because they have to actually do 2 layers when they do
Okay.
metallic. And so it's definitely a lot more challenging to design. And I just got so much feedback on that label that like my tester group was like, there's no going back now,
Okay.
right? Like,
So just to clarify, positive feedback. I would hope.
oh yeah, no, yeah. But I mean, like even now, Watchmen, like I still
Yeah.
like. I mean, I see Shave of the Days off of Watchmen. I launched it in September ish, I
Oh,
think,
yeah. I think so.
because it was right around hurricane season.
Right.
That was what my plan was. And like I still sell it like hotcakes, and I still see a Shave of the Day with Watchmen daily. Like I'm still
Wow.
tagged in it
Okay.
daily, and that my tester group was like, you're not gonna be able to like go back to the regular ones now, right? And I was like, it'll be fine, and they were like,
No. It's
not gonna be, yeah. And then she did Nocturne for me, which was just a really small like collaboration I did with Barrister Man. They did the scent,
mhm.
I did the vegan soap base, and she rocked that label then too. So I was like, okay, these are fun. They're fun to do. Fine. Okay. So really, honestly, this is the thing is the community in the hobby, like really want those,
Yeah.
right? But when I rebranded, I wasn't really focused. I really wasn't even in the hobby when I rebranded and focused on this. So like JR can tell you a funny story. Like I almost had a brand called, I don't remember what it was. It was something like Noble Pig or something like that. Like, and he was like, or Fancy Pig or Dapper Pig or something. He goes, that sounds an awfully lot like Noble Otter. And I was like, well, that's kind of a cool name. And he goes, there
Yeah.
is a
Yes.
Noble Otter. And I was like,
Darn.
oh. I was like, Jesus Christ, what did I get into? Um, so we still laugh about that. I could have had like the opposite of
Yep.
Cody's brand with that.
Animal theme. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so I wanted something. Actually, the original labels and like Ben, like this is like probably the same thing with Ben. Like it's about brand recognition. So like I wasn't really like into the hobby at that point, but I kept thinking like if people are on in a random store, say you're at Sephora or I'm just
Sure.
Sephora out
The
there, but
shelf.
Sephora,
Yeah.
Target, wherever
Yeah.
it may be, you recognize brands based on that consistent look, not because they have a different illustrative label for every damn scent, right? Like you recognize American Crew because it has the same type, the same look, everything for everyone. Yoplait. I mean, it really doesn't matter where you're at. Like you recognize the brand consistency, right? So honestly, like for the hobbies, I realized people, but for like larger scale, like really the brand consistency is actually more important. So it's I'm really torn between the two because I am trying to like grow like outside the hobby, so it is a catch-22. The consistency of that is definitely affecting, it can affect brand recognition later, which is something I am concerned about. But as I grow, if I grow to where I want to be anyway, if you stay in the hobby, it really doesn't matter. People are going to just know the name, and they'll recognize the label based on repetitive viewing. They'll automatically recognize the design. Oh yeah, even if they don't see your name on it. But when it's sitting on a shelf somewhere, people don't really. It's not the same.
Right.
So,
At a glance, you want to be able to be recognized, especially if one day it's like your local supermarket chain or something like, or whatever, like an actual physical shelf as you described.
Yep.
So then would you say, as far as the illustrative versus the more standardized labels, are the standardized labels still then in use for, I guess, like for your established scents, like the stuff that's year round, right? That's kind of like that's the one where we can still like, okay, that's a Zingari soap because I know.
Yeah, like Nomad isn't going to get a new label. Wanderer's not getting a new label. Explorer, they're not getting new labels.
Yeah.
I actually did just redo Navigator, and it was because I had a really good idea for it. Like,
Okay.
and it was kind of the same way. I was like, okay, so I really have a good design concept that I would like to do for that. So maybe I'll just do that one. But no, the others that are in that standardized look, they're not going anywhere. They're going to stay that way.
Okay.
But moving forward, I think at least the majority of them probably will have the illustrative. And you know, there is a cost and a time
Sure.
like commitment. I mean, gosh, Navigator just got finished, and it took her like 2 months to do. So
Oh, wow.
I
Okay.
mean, it's time consuming.
Yeah.
Raza's prompt. Like I didn't give Raza like props on that shit. But yeah, I mean, some, you know, because they're doing it like on the side, evenings, nights, and weekends
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
stuff. So
Understood.
you know, I can like take some time, especially if it's a very complex. I mean, when I do, if I'm paying somebody to do a brand new label design for a full release, I mean, I have like 6 products. So it's an investment. It's not just like the one design for like, I mean, obviously the soap top, the lid
Yep.
is the
main.
thing.
Yeah.
But I also have a side label. I have a splash. I have a soap. I have, you know, the new ones all have beard elixirs. They have beard butters, and I have a fragrance.
Wow.
That's a lot
That's a lot of
labels.
labels. Right. You got to repurpose that or tweak that design to fit all those products.
Right. Yeah. So it's a lot of work on their end. I mean, it's a time commitment definitely to do a full lineup. So
Okay.
it's also a cost commitment because of that.
Sure.
So,
Yeah. No, of course. That's something that the consumer might not consider. But you want your fancy labels, it doesn't come for free. You know?
it does not.
Even to update, like we're talking about the template, like the more simple. I mean, there's a cost in that too, because like unless you got some like mad graphic design skills, Heather, someone's guys tweak. You know, like what's a good font, what's a good color for this new one. Like it's still time and money. But
Yeah. I have a local designer I work with who's really great normally. And so I can say, well, before I started needing like a bigger volume of labels, I could send them a new name and say, well, I kind of want it in this sort of color, and he would match something within that green that would match like the original green.
Yeah.
And he would send it back to me, and he'd be like, hey, how's this look? And I'm like, okay, run with it. Like, and I need, 100 labels or whatever it was. So it's not quite that easy anymore.
Right.
It is a little bit more work, but it's fine. I mean, they are fun. They look great in pictures. The brand consistency, some people love Sterling's like consistent look and some people don't, but that's a great example. He is a fantastic example of he has brand recognition from anything.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what he's selling, he's got brand recognition. And it's the same way if he ever upscales into, just say, for example, department stores or whatever, like other online retailers outside of the hobby.
Yeah.
He's got it like on every product. It's like people are going to know. Like that's important. I mean, people in the hobby don't understand the value in that aspect of it.
Right. The branding, the marketing part, especially in it, right? Like and that makes sense too. Just to kind of backtrack a little bit, where the illustrative labels, if you're just someone that's a wet shaving enthusiast looking at other shave labels, yes, the beautiful illustrative label is going to pop and stand out from everything else. So of course that'll draw your eye to it. But then for someone who just like, I just want to like, what is a shave soap? And you go look, it's like it's nice, but it's like you're trying to like lodge your name and your logo or whatever in their brains. Like, if you like this, please check out these other things that we have to offer. So
exactly,
totally makes sense.
Yeah, and that's also like another thing that people don't think about is the amount of scents that you carry. Like right now, I mean, honestly, like in most people in my situation, like we sort of cater to the hobby because you're the majority of our customers, right? Is the wet shave community. So when it comes to like fragrances and when it comes to like new scents and new releases, I mean, like more established brands who are a little bit more like not a niche so much, they don't do 15 scents a year. You know what I mean? Like they do like maybe a spring release, maybe a fall release, and then like 4 standard scents or something like that. You know, I mean, they're not under this pressure to like constantly just do another scent, do a new scent, do a new scent. You know, I mean, it's a lot. It's definitely a different workflow being in a hobby niche than being in like a mainstream like lineup.
Right. And that's a really important thing that you hit on, where a lot of the listeners of the podcast are part of the wet shaving community, wet shaving degenerates, hobbyists, whatever label you want to use. And yeah, it's funny how many people aren't aware that like your Taylor of Old Bond Streets, Parasso, and the brands are just, they have, they've been around a long time and have established that, whether just through word of mouth or whatever. It's that kind of fits the model what you said. It's like they need to have their basics. They gotta keep it simple. That you have too many in your line, then people are just like, I don't know what to pick, I'm just gonna go for the one that has two choices because I like green over red, or green or red. I can do green or red. Like, oh, maybe I'll do both. But
no, exactly.
Right.
And that's the thing, like they have what, like 4 cents, 3 cents or something like that, and then they have like their look is exactly the same except for the color for everything. Like it's that brand recognition. Yeah, so it's definitely a difference, but the labels are fun. It's fun working with the designers because Roz is like, Heather knows what she wants. He's a very nice way of saying Heather is bossy and she was telling me Roz is so polite. But no, I like, once I got something stuck in my head, then I was like, okay, this is what I want. And so then I have a very distinct image that I want portrayed.
Okay.
And so then, like, I'm not saying like they can't do what they want or they can't, because sometimes I'm just like, okay, yeah, that looks good. Because sometimes there's certain things that aren't that big of an issue to me, but then the ones that are, I'm kind of like, no, that's not what okay, so these are the examples I gave you. This is what I wanted, So it's fun to see it come to life whenever you have like this vision. Because it's not really something we have control of. It is, but it isn't, because I can't do any graphic designing, so I have no control over that. It's not like I can be like, let me fix that for you like I can other things, So let me just do that my way.
Right. They're carrying out your vision, especially if you have a very clear one in your mind, and then from there, it's like, oh well, we can't do that exactly, but how about this? And
right,
it's a process.
It is a process. Yes, good way to put that.
Just to backtrack, Heather, you mentioned with the Watchmen, and on the scent side, which is really something I really love in the wet shaving hobby, you got to work with Sean Mayer of Mayer Olfactory. Dang it, Mayer Olfactive, I mean. Also, Chachon Luke's, which I think more shavers will be familiar with that. Can you just go a little bit into that process, because we're just talking about like with your designers how they carry out a vision. It certainly seemed like with Watchmen and other scents that have since come out, you have a very particular vision for that.
Yes. So I've been on a journey of learning perfuming myself, but my schedule just when you're putting in like 60-70 hour weeks, it's like learning something new that's so time consuming and evolved. Just not always easy to. So I wanted this dark stormy aquatic. Like I just knew I wanted one. I am obsessed with aquatics. I started it last year and there were a few. Kerosene has a really nice aquatic I love, and Imaginary Authors, and I was starting to blend some of those, and I was like, this is what I need. I need like a stormy aquatic that's a little bit dark but not like dirty, and like I knew what I wanted. And I sat down, I kind of did a few things, and I was like, I don't have time for this, and I know it's not something like really that I do. So I reached out to someone and I was like, hey, so do you take, because I knew that like he only does like collaborations with, Scott. So I was like, do you do like freelance work as far as like, and he's like, well, what are you looking for? And I told him, and he was like, okay, yeah, I definitely would be interested in doing that. So it kind of just went from there. And the first one he sent me was like almost there. And I was like, it's got this. And so he sent me a second one right away. And I was like, this is it.
Oh, wow.
This is the one I like. And I was like, I told my testers, I was like, okay, so the fragrance is in. They're like, you're not going to send it to us? And I was like, no, because I don't care. Like,
well, as in like it was good for you. This is what you wanted, right?
I was done with it. Like, I was happy with it, and I was almost like, I'm gonna send it to you guys, but I've already told you I'm done. Like, it's a done deal. But like, I'll let you guys smell it. It's fine. They weren't real happy about that. They're like, this is what we're for. But I was like, I just love it. Like, for me, it hit everything I wanted. It's like not dirty like some could be. Yeah. I think it definitely could have been like dirty or too bright. Like, has the perfect like stormy air vibe that I wanted. It's a little bit dark, and it's not dirty. It has enough aquatic that you recognize it's an aquatic, but not quite an aquatic. Yeah. Like, it hits everything that I want. So that project for me just came together perfectly. Like, everything about it, like the write-up, the label, the scent, everything was just in perfect unison with each other. So it's one of my favorite projects. So I love it. Yeah. And I had met Sean before. I talked to him several times. I met him at a small meet that we did in Louisville. Oh, okay. And I had talked to him a little bit. Like, that's when I kind of started tossing around the idea about learning perfuming and stuff. And he was like, oh, hey, let me email you some stuff. So like a few days after the meetup, he like emailed me a bunch of references, and he's like, hey, these. So I had kind of started the rapport with him a little bit, but I really just didn't know where to start. Like, if I wanted to hire someone to do something like that. And I had even considered it to be like the second to the lineup, like the number 2 basically to the number 1.
Oh, right. Yes.
And then, yeah. So initially it was kind of going to be that. And then I was like, well, no, I really want this label because I have this design. So it was a whole thing. But yeah.
Because otherwise,
that's kind of how that worked out.
Otherwise, it would have just been labeled number 2. And you wouldn't like be hitting home that theme, right? Of like, I mean, there's a very distinct imagery. That's why I think really, I'm a big fan of that scent. But yeah, that label, like, it just really completes the picture for that release. And just remind me, you've obviously worked more with Sean. What are the other since After Watchmen release? What are other ones that you've worked together on? Or had him work on for you? Whatever the proper phrasing is.
Sean and Merchant.
Okay.
And some people may not know this. So at the beginning of the year or the end of the year last year, like, it was not planned, but I had to discontinue The Magician. And it was due to one of the fragrance components being discontinued. And I was like, I kind of wanted to update it anyway, but I was kind of forced to. And so I actually have 3.5 scents ready to go from Sean. Okay. Because at the beginning of the year, I had, around Christmas time maybe, I had sent him and I was like, these are some things that I'm really wanting. Like, I'm not in a rush for them per se, but I was kind of wanting something to replace Magician sort of quickly, because I knew that once it ran out, I didn't really have anything like in its place. And yeah, so, but because some of them are a little bit darker, like they're going to be released in the fall, and don't ask me the names for them because I don't have a name for them yet. Noted. Got it.
Forthcoming. It's forthcoming.
It's forthcoming. A lot of people by now know that I have a sandalwood that he did, because the sandalwood he did for me, and that was because I felt like I didn't have a sandalwood base, and I was like, well, I feel like everybody's gonna have sandalwood, like, so I need a sandalwood.
I'm all for that. Yes.
Yeah. So the sandalwood is actually done. I'm not going to release it until like after summer. Yeah.
Cooler weather, correct?
Yeah, I figure it'll go better for cooler weather. Not that it's a heavy dark sandalwood, but just in general, I feel like sandalwood is a little bit more, cool.
Fall, yeah, weather. Fall, winter. Yeah,
but, yeah. So But when I was playing with the barrel proof, the last two revisions I sent them of that, I was like, I sent them one that I had done, and I was like, I wonder what that sandalwood would be like mixed in like the other barrel proof ingredients. And I was like, so I sent it to them. I did tell them, and they were both like, oh, we like this one the best. And I was like, of course you would. Of course you would. So then I told them, they were stoked. They were like, you mean our scent's gonna have like part of Sean's work in it? Yes. So the sandalwood base,
a little bonus for them. Yeah.
Yes, it was definitely a bonus. So barrel proof has the sandalwood base in it. So if you guys like sandalwood and barrel proof, FYI, that'll be coming out later.
Nice.
But they love that. So yeah, that's one. And then I actually have sort of a like a yin yang barbershop coming. One is like a super citrusy, herbally fresh one that will come out this summer. And then one is a darker, slightly spicy, slightly powdery, like twist on like the classic, but like modernized. Like they're just polar opposites of each other. And let me tell you, the citrus one is amazing. Like I didn't even want any revisions. He sent it and I was like, yes. I love this. Like I was like literally like we're gonna like put it on my arms, and like I made the soap, and then I was like, well, maybe I can put this in a lotion for myself.
Wow.
Like I was drenching like everything. It's so good.
Nice.
So I'm actually starting on finishing up that project now. So hopefully like July-ish, maybe, I don't know, sometime this summer. Well, it's still
I was gonna say the summer is like fast approaching as of the recording of this video.
Yes, I know.
This podcast.
I didn't have any releases from the Watchmen until number one and Merchant, like in March, I think maybe. And so it was like 5 months. I didn't have any like releases basically. And so because they all kept getting delayed. And so now I have like a ton of them like all at once. So now I'm like, I have too many. I have to space them out. Like I can't release every 2 weeks. It's too much work.
Right. And then you don't want to like, I don't know, like release fatigue or
oh yeah
or whatever you want to call it.
I mean, yeah, it's exhausting for you guys as well. I mean, first off, to keep up with them, I don't know how you guys do it. I can't even like tell you what I did 2 weeks ago, and you guys can like repeat like everybody's releases that's coming out the next like month.
Google Calendar. I'm not sure. I don't know what other methods people. I don't know what other methods people do. But
yeah. So whenever like as a hobbyist, are you automatically just more drawn to scents that you think are more complex, or like, I mean, I like with Sean, obviously a lot of people know Sean, but I've worked with like Rurana now, and I've worked with Byron.
Yep.
And so I've worked with a couple other perfumers. Sean's just more known in the hobby per se.
Right.
Not that he's not known in perfume world, but his perfume work is more known in the hobby, because he was in the hobby. So, yeah, are you just automatically, because of the fragrances, more drawn to the more complex scents? Or, I mean, do you have daily drivers that are like sandalwood? Like, you know what I mean? Like just something simple.
Yeah, I think, I am drawn to more complex scents, but I will also say, for me personally, I like a variety. So in the summer, if you give me a really freaking good like citrus, and it could be a 2-note thing, a 3-note thing. There's nothing wrong with it, because if you just get the blend and you nail it, I feel like I can appreciate that scent just as much as a clone dupe or inspired by that's like 15 notes long. Like, I can appreciate that too, right? If as long as it's done well. But one other factor for myself is uniqueness. So like a lot of these great collaborations you work with, whether it's with Sean, whether it's with one of the other perfumers, which I'm glad you kind of brought that up because that was on my little checklist of things to mention. But it's great that you're kind of introducing the wet shaving world to these kind of known or at least like indie, indie known perfumers, because I think it's such a great gateway either way, right? Like wet shaving into fragrances,
Right.
and now with more collaborations, fragrances back into wet shaving. Like I'm all for that. People discovering either of those things. So yeah, so I don't, I'm not consistent where it'll be like, if this is simple, I'm gonna pass it up. It's like I like it. If I like it, it just smells good, I'm gonna use it.
Right.
It's pretty
Okay.
pretty simple in that way, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always interesting because Sean's the only U.S. perfumer that I've worked with so far,
Mm,
and it's interesting to work with other people because I know Sean a bit on the personal level, so I can also be like texting him and be like, "Hey, so what about blah blah blah," and it's a little bit different when you work with someone that is French and doesn't know English, and I don't know French,
hmm.
so it's like there's a little bit of a language barrier that you have to get past. And with Rirana, when I reached out to them, I was like cold calling them basically. I just I
Really?
got
Oh,
there. Yeah, I got there. I have this thing. Like the worst people can do is say no,
yeah,
right? Like,
yes.
okay, you're not interested. Okay, thanks. I appreciate your time. Move on. It is what it
Yeah.
is. Like, you don't know. They could say yes. You know what? Rirana said yes, and I really didn't think they would. They had never done a
Could you
collaboration.
Could you share? Because I think I read or heard a little bit about how you like discovered Rihanna. I believe it's through another mutual friend of ours. Could you just go like,
Yeah.
how did they get on your radar?
So last year, sometime at some point, Dave Cowley, who I absolutely love, he's someone I've talked to since I was like really new, actually. He posted like a review or something about them, and he just kept going on and on about how great they were. And I was like, something that I've tried to do because I've really not been big into perfumes before now, and I'm like, I think it's part of like the learning journey is I'm trying to like just get more exposure, So I've been trying new people and new artisans in a sense. So I was like, okay, well, I'll check them out. And I looked, and they have this fantastic discovery set. And it's like $75 shipped for like 10 3 ml like samples that are great labeled, like great presentation, everything.
Mm.
And so I was like, yeah, okay. So I got that. And when they came in, I was blown away. I loved it. Like, I feel like a lot of artisan perfumers, and it's part of the learning journey, I think, but a lot of artisan perfumers, they tend to have a heavy hand, and it's not as well balanced as like other scents, I think.
Yeah.
It's almost like they're just like macro dosed on certain things, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But sometimes I think you can see like the progression in like their learning. Like it just becomes more well rounded. And even with Sean, like if you look at his like earlier stuff versus like the stuff he's knocking out now with neuropactive, right? Like you
Mm-hmm.
can see his learning, like
Mm-hmm.
progression and like the sophistication. Doesn't have to be more complicated, just the sophistication and the blending and things like that. And so they were just amazing. And there was like 4 in there that I am just completely obsessed with.
Oh,
I love
nice.
the. Do you have their sample set?
No, no. So actually, a buddy of mine that's local, really into perfumes. He found out I was like, I really like this scent, and he's like,
Yeah.
next time I see him, he's gonna pass on to me his discovery set. So I'm super excited to check it out.
Okay. So
Shout out to
when
Todd.
they
To
do,
Todd.
you hit me up, all right? When you get it, you hit me up. They have one called Blackwood. There's a spice and oud or something like that, or black oud and then spice and wood, I think is what it is. Those 2 are amazing.
Mm.
There's this one. There's cherry on top. Anyway, they're so good. There's like no bad ones in there.
Okay.
And I was just like, I wonder if I can get them to make me a scent. Like I could just kept thinking about that. I was like, I wonder if they can make me a custom. Like I wonder if they do that. And so when I reached out to him, I was like, hey, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, or if you're interested in doing a collaboration, like I would love to do like one of like these scents. And they were like, okay, well, what about Coconut Nana's? It's our best seller. And I was like, okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't realize that was their bestseller. I mean, I'm not surprised. I from what I've smelled,
Yeah.
that it's lovely.
Yeah. Well, they're in Malaysia too. So if they have I know they have international,
Mm-hmm.
like followers, but they have, obviously a lot of local people, I'm sure. So I'm sure a lighter scent probably just for their weather and stuff like that probably just goes a lot better. But yeah, it's either their bestseller or one of their bestsellers.
Okay.
So yeah, and they're making me a custom scent. So it was a win-win. So it was awesome. I literally like messaged Dave. I was like so excited. My husband was coming, I'm telling him, and he was like, okay. And I'm like, do you understand what this means? Like, how awesome this is? And he was just like, yeah, that's great, babe.
Yeah, no, his energy is great, and just to give him a plug too, that's Dave Callie's Groom Room on Instagram and on YouTube. He does fragrance videos.
Well, I mean, Sean's busy. It's not like he can do all of my scents. I mean,
Yep.
he has his own scents to make. He's doing
Yep.
stuff with like Scott and stuff, and I do. I think we have same with like him and Dennis from Seaforth. We have a different relationship than he has with Scott, obviously. And we are literally like, that was the thing that people were confused about whenever Watchmen came out. They're like, well, it's a collaboration. It's really not. Like,
Oh, right.
and it's easy for like your mind to just go there, but really all of his collaborations are exclusive to Scott. I mean, that is definitely their relationship. That is like, their agreement that they have set up. So it's not really a collaboration. It's literally me paying Sean to make me a perfume, right? I'm contracting him. I'm like, it's like a subcontractor, just like if I hire a label designer or a copyright or whatever, it's the same thing. He falls into that same category. I mean, obviously Sean and I, are friends and we have a relationship, but and so I know him on a personal level now, but I mean, we're still not technically, it's a little bit different. I mean, nothing is marketed under his name, obviously. I do use him. I do know him as the perfumer, and even on my perfume bottles or boxes, he's like his story and his like more information. Like I try to just spread the word about him. So
nice.
Like on the bottles, the perfume comes in. I'm like, for more information, like this. I think it's worded something like. This project was brought to life by Sean Mayer of Mayer Olfactive. For more information, visit blah, blah, blah. So I try to give him like all the credit where I can, but it's not, it's not collaboration, even though we're definitely working together because he is doing, his creativeness is led by me. Not that I'm taking credit for his creativeness at all.
No,
at all whatsoever.
But it's like, but you are the client, and you've commissioned him, work for hire.
Exactly.
However, yeah, I mean, it's right. Your friendship or closeness is like gravy, where like you said, you can, if you have something pop in your head, you could text him, but you wouldn't do that with like Byron. Well, and there's a language barrier, of course, but yeah,
there is a language barrier. I was like, hey, how was your English? And he was like, my English is as good as my Chinese. And I was like,
no.
is that a job? Like, I'm not really sure how to take this.
Like I don't assume you don't know Chinese, so
yeah, I don't really know what that means. I assume that means no, but yeah, Google Translate is sometimes your friend and sometimes not your friend.
Oh yeah.
So it's been interesting though. I will say, like, I mean, I've approached other perfumers that have told me no, or they're like, no, I don't do collaborations, I don't do that, or I only do perfume, or whatever it may be. And you know what? The worst they can do is tell me no. So. Oh my gosh. You want to hear a funny story? So, okay, this isn't really funny. So I am terrified of spiders. This is like a thing that my testing group like harasses me about, but I'm literally like, it's a legit like major fear for me.
Okay.
And my old workshop here at the house, I work kind of like in the county, and I had wolf spiders. Do you know what those are?
Are they
They look like little baby tarantulas, but they're huge, but they're not tarantula huge, but they're like,
yeah. They're right. They're not tiny guys.
They're the big beefy ones, yeah. So I had a lot of them in my old shop, and so if it got late and I was out there working and I started seeing a lot of them, I knew it was time for me to go in because that's when they came out. So I was like, okay, it's time for me to go home. You guys can have it, whatever. But the new workshop doesn't really have spiders, so I was really enjoying it.
Okay.
And like, what is it? Okay, like Tuesday, I guess. I pop open this box to ship out a wholesale order, and there's this spider like laying flat, like against the inside of this box, right?
Oh.
And I'm like, what the hell? I've never seen a spider do that. So I'm like, of course, this is after I scream. And so I'm like tapping him out, and I kill him. And I kept thinking, that's just really weird, like something about him. So I take a picture of him. And so, like, the middle of the night, Tuesday night, I can't sleep. So I pull up this spider picture and I start Googling it. It's a fucking brown recluse. I have brown recluse in my workshop. Like, this is worst fucking nightmare for me, John. Like, you don't understand. Like, I am terrified.
I'm not sure what that spider is. It doesn't sound good given the name.
It's it's one of like the 2 poisonous spiders we have in the state. Like, it literally causes, like, if it bites you, it literally causes like your tissue to like necrose. Like,
okay. Yeah, got it. Like, oh my god.
Yeah, it's like, it's actually a dangerous, not just a creepy spider. It's actually like
it'll get you.
Yeah, so, like it will make your ass sick.
It was dead, or no, it was flat, and then you got to it before it could get to you.
Killed it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. No, right. I had like popped open the box and so I like popped the box down on the ground, and when I did, the box like hit him and it killed him. But
oh jeez,
I was like, I'm only because I'm scared of spiders even looked in the box to begin with. Like, it's a habit for me because like out here, like I would have so many spiders and stuff that like I would open things and I would immediately look see if there was a spider in it. So it's just habit. But thank God it is. So the pest inspector came today and he's like, so you got like 7 brown recluse in your glue traps. And I was like, what?
Oh my gosh.
So that's how my weeks went.
Ooh.
I'm like, this is like arachnophobia literally for me. Like, this is like worst nightmare stuff. So it's been a real interesting day. And like, if I'm ever on a live in my workshop and you guys ever hear me scream, it's probably because I saw a spider.
Has it happened before? On a live?
On a live? No.
Okay.
Thank God. No. But sometimes if I've just seen one or made a comment to my guys, they'll sometimes be like, is that a spider behind you? And the first I would be like, what? But now I'm on to this.
They're just messing with you.
Yes, they can't do that to me anymore. So anyway, that's my tangent. I hate spiders and I definitely hate brown recluse.
Oh man. No, I'm not a fan of creepy crawlies either, so
I can handle pretty much anything. Like, give me a lizard, give me a snake. Give me a snake. Like, literally give me a snake, give me a lizard, give me anything but a spider. I just don't do spiders. But yeah, so
well, thank you for sharing the real dangers of the new workshop.
Yeah, it definitely comes with like its own creatures, definitely.
Well, I know I've taken up a lot of your time, and I do appreciate just like spending the evening just chatting about all sorts of things. But just one last question as we're winding things down. Where do you see wet shaving going? Or alternatively, we talked about some things coming up for Zingari, but like a little further down the line, let's say in a year's time, is there any like goals, big or small, that you want to hit with Zingari Man?
Working on expanding outside the hobby, which I feel like probably most makers are somewhat trying to do, but like it's actually been a focus this year. I had two goals, growth and to improve on my scents. And I feel like my scents definitely have, like, I've hit my goals with that. And for what I have planned the rest of the year, I think that it's good. And so especially since I've been able to focus, I've only been 100% Zingari for a month, basically. And so I am really focusing on doing things to grow outside the hobby, like a presentation I did for a retailer yesterday that is 100% opposite from a hobby retailer. But I'm trying to do trade shows. I'm working on like listing on Amazon, things like that. So that's kind of my big goal. I do see that a trend in the hobby is I think there's going to be younger people come in. I think there is a shift. Yeah, I think that's what I'm seeing a little bit is not necessarily a massive shift, like a whole shift, right. But I definitely see younger coming in. And I can see that on the backside, even like on my purchases and stuff. So I do know that that's happening. And I think that like working on like the labels and like improving the scents in general, like will help bring that in. But as far as the hobby as a whole, I think that, people are focusing on like zero waste better and, reduce, reuse, recycle, blah, blah, blah. So, all those things. So I think that will help bring in a little bit of a younger crowd, so to speak, who are a little bit more environmentally conscious. Okay. That's where I see it going. I had a projection whenever COVID hit last year. People were like, oh, like the smaller artisans are just going to go away. Like they're not going to be able to afford it, blah, blah. And I was like, I don't think that's the case. I think you're going to see growth because people are having a little bit more time, maybe a little less. It's different stress, but like maybe less stress in some ways. And maybe time factor stress, as far as like activities and like busyness. And so they're going to have more time to like focus and like bring in their A game for like, kick up everything. And I think we saw that last year. I think we saw a lot of artisans that were smaller, like really emerge a little bit more. And I think we saw some of the ones who were a little bit more well-known in the community, like really flourish because, either they had to, or they had time to like really put their energy into it. And, there's nothing like giving creative people time because that's when the magic happens. Yeah. So I think that like the growth from that last year is blending into this year for the hobby and for the artisans. And when the artisans have time to get creative, obviously everybody benefits, right? Like the artisans benefit because it's their outlet. They benefit because then they have like a return and sales and things like that. But you guys benefit because you get a little bit more choice. You get more like new ideas and things like that you're presented with. So it's it definitely goes both ways, I think.
I do want to thank you again so much for both your insight and just even kind of letting us peek behind the curtain, see what's going on with Zingari. And I just do want to say I hope for just continued success, continued growth, and really that you just max the crap out of that 4,000 square feet of space.
It might take me a bit of a time, but like I got a goal, so we'll see. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Heather. You have a good night.
All right, you as well.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Lather Talk. You can find all the links for Zingari Man, GERARD, and myself in the show notes. If you enjoyed what you heard today, you can help us out in two ways. First, if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, consider leaving us a 5-star review. Second, if you're watching us over on YouTube, we'd love it if you hit that like button and consider subscribing, if you haven't done so already, to the channel so you won't miss future episodes. Thank you guys again, and we hope to see you next time.